In his annual State of the Nation address, Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized the West for what he calls, quote, a new policy of containment, and defended his nation's own policies. CCTV's Tom Barton has more now from Moscow.
Affected by Western sanctions over Russia's actions in Ukraine, falling oil prices, and the ruble currency already losing more than a third of its value against the dollar so far this year, President Vladimir Putin shifted blame on the West and what he called speculators, saying the West was so determined to destroy Russia that sanctions would have been imposed even without the Ukraine crisis.
Even if all of it did not take place, they would come up with another reason to contain Russia's growing capabilities, to influence it, or, even better, use it for their own goals.
The speech comes just days after the government warned that Russia would fall into recession in 2015.
President Putin tried to justify Russia's annexation of Crimea in March, so heavily criticized by Kiev and Western governments. And he called the February flight of Ukraine's previous pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, a coup.
Putin took aim at the West, saying it is trying to destroy Russia just the same way Yugoslavia suffered in the 1990s.
The support of separatism in Russia from abroad, including the informational, political and financial, through intelligence services, was absolutely obvious. And there is no doubt that they would have loved to see the Yugoslavia scenario of collapse and dismemberment for us, with all the tragic consequences it would have for the peoples of Russia.
Just a few hours before his speech, the bloodiest fighting in months broke out in Chechnya. Battles between security forces and militants in Chechnya's capital Grozny saw buildings ablaze, explosions and gunfire across the city centre. Back in Moscow, Putin barely mentioned the attack, instead focusing on East-West confrontation and sanctions, which, he said, would only stimulate Russia to achieve its goals faster. Tom Barton, CCTV, Moscow.